Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this fun and easy watermelon tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything that I used today into the description box below so that way you guys can purchase those items if you would like to. So if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. The tumbler that I'll be using today is a 20-ounce skinny Hogdle tumbler from the Stainless Depot company. I went ahead and prepped and primed my tumbler in this prickly pear color by Rustoleum. I thought it would match really well with the glitter that I'll be using today. So to apply my glitter, I'm going to be using Illuminlight's Amazing Sealer. I really enjoy this stuff. Typically, I like to do the epoxy method, so you could absolutely do it that way if you'd like to, but I really like this Amazing Sealer. So I'm just going to fully coat this thing, even the handles, in this Amazing Sealer. Because it is so thick, you have a longer time where you can put on your glue and apply your glitter. Typically with Mod Podge, you would have to put on your glue, apply your glitter, and then put a second coat over top. With this stuff, I find I don't have to do that because it takes a little bit longer to dry. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and apply my glitter. The glitter that I'm going to be using today is called Taffy, and that's from my glitter shop, SOCglitters.com. And I'm going to go ahead and fully load this up, making sure that I really get into those the handle there as well, making sure it's all nice and covered in my glitter. And after I get it fully coated, I'm going to go ahead and set it off to the side and let that dry. And then we're going to get our first coat of epoxy over top of our raw glitter. So because I'm using a fine glitter, I just mixed up 20 milliliters of epoxy, which was more than enough to go over our fine glitter. But if you're using a chunky, you might want to mix up about 30 milliliters, just so that way it gives us more of a coverage. After I'm done applying my epoxy, I'm going to place it onto my tumbler turner. I'm going to hit it up really good with my blowtorch. Just want to do fast motions up and down with your torch just to pop any of those little micro bubbles. You're going to let that cure, and they'll be ready to start adding our decals. So here it is the next day. It has a pretty smooth surface, which is nice. There are some spots that I am going to go ahead and sand down. Of course, we want to make sure that we come through and clean up our rim really well. There we go. I'm just going to take my razor knife and go around and get any of that epoxy that might have dipped down into the tumbler out of there. I'm going to go ahead and take my sanding blocks. I use two different kinds. I use a 100 grit and then I use an 80 grit. So I do the 100 grit first. I go around and do my rim really well, and then I just come through and kind of do any big points that might be on the tumbler. I make sure I do the bottom really good, and then I come back through with the 80 grit and do that as well. But because, again, this is a fine glitter, the surface was relatively smooth, and I felt comfortable to go ahead and move on to adding my decals. But if you feel like it's still too lumpy, go ahead and put another coat of epoxy over top of this before you add your decals. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse that off, get all the little debris off, and then we're going to start measuring it up and get those decals applied. So I'm just going to measure the height and the width of my tumbler here. Then I'm going to come on over to my Cricut and upload my little design. So there was two to choose from. One was just like you can make your own pattern. One was already the pattern already made. So I went ahead and chose the 6,000 by 6,000 there, which already had the pattern displayed. I'm going to go ahead and remove that background, and I got this off Creative Fabrica. Again, I'll make sure to put it into the description for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and choose the cut image there, upload it into my design space, and as you can see, it uploads really big, so we're going to have to get that down to size so that way we can fully see what we need to do here. All right, that's better. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unlock. It's that little lock button down there. You're going to unlock it so that way we can put in the dimensions that we need to. Now my width might be a little bit more different than yours because you might have more epoxy than me, but my width was 9.3 and my height is going to be 7.7. So I'm going to go ahead and put those dimensions in. I'm going to go ahead and get that cut out on a black vinyl, and then we're ready to start wrapping this around our tumbler. So the pattern is all weeded here, and I'm just going to go ahead and get my transfer tape applied now. And after I have my transfer tape applied, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it is going to fit completely around my tumbler. You just want to verify, it's just one of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and take it and wrap it around and take a look at it and make sure it's going to fit. Looks good to me. So now we're ready to go ahead and start peeling everything back and putting it on. So when I wrap stuff, I actually take everything out, like I take my design completely off its backing. But if you don't feel comfortable doing this, go ahead and do the hinge method if you need to, but I'm actually just gonna go ahead and fully take off my backing before I apply it down. So the next step is I'm just going to start at one side of my handle, so that way the other part is going to end up under the handle, which I'll show you guys here in a second, but I just lay it down until it is nice and straight onto my tumbler, and then I just wrap it up. But if you're doing the hinge method, all you want to do is peel back about an inch of your vinyl or your paper backing. You're going to cut that off, and then you're just going to start to roll from there as you pull the paper backing, and then just trimming if you need to the paper backing as you go. But you know, this was such a simple design. See, it just rolled right on. So now that we're back around to the handle, I'm just going to remove any little pieces that might be in my way around the handle, so that way I can easily kind of push everything down, which this design was super simple because there's a lot of space in between of those seeds there. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this stuff up and then fully get that laid up under my handle. There was a little seed there, but I'm just going to come back through and just kind of put him down where I need to. Now, after I have everything completely burnished down and I peel back my transfer tape here, I am going to take my hands and kind of warm up my vinyl. It just really helps that glue kind of settle down onto the tumbler, so that way you don't have any lifting when you go to apply your epoxy. So I'm just going to take my hands, warm it up a bit, and then we're going to start measuring for the handle and for the bottom. So I knew I wanted this completely coated in these seeds. So we're going to come back into our Cricut design space. We're going to duplicate up the seed template that we did because I want the seeds the same size. So we're going to put that off to the side and save that. And this extra one is what we're going to use to cut our template out. So I'm going to start with the bottom first, which is just a simple circle. So I'm going to come over to my shapes. I'm going to go ahead and choose the circle image, and it's pretty simple. You're just going to put in your dimensions. 2.5 is what I did, so about 2.5 is what I did. You're going to get that sized up, and then you're just going to find a pattern that you like. It doesn't matter which one, just choose a random pattern. You're going to go ahead and highlight everything all together. Then you're going to go down to the bottom over there, to the right. At the very bottom, you're going to slice everything. You're going to cut your images out there, and there you go. Now you have your bottom for your tumbler. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. But again, the reason why I'm doing it this way is so that way everything is spaced the same and everything is the same size. So that's why I'm doing it this way today instead of just randomly taking the seeds. I want to make sure everything has the same spacing. All right, so now we're going to move on to the handle. I went over to my shapes, took a square. I'm unlocking my square, and then I'm going to put in my dimensions. For this handle, I did 0.5, so about a half an inch. And for the height, it was 5.5 that I did. And then again, we're just going to choose a random pattern that we like, and we're going to go ahead and place that right over top of that pattern there. And we'll highlight everything all together and slice that out just like we did the bottom. But these are great because then now you have the template already saved, and if you ever want to make one again in the same size, it's already there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut out on the same black vinyl that I did for the main base seeds, and then we're ready to apply this. So now you're just going to go ahead and put on your handle, you're going to go ahead and put on your bottom, and you have a seamless watermelon seed coverage around your handled tumbler here. So after this is all applied, I am going to go ahead and put a coat of epoxy over top of this because we want a nice smooth surface for the next step we're about to do. I'm going to go ahead and get that onto my turner. I'm going to make sure that I hit it up really good with my blowtorch. I'm going to let that cure overnight and be ready to start on to the next step. All right, my tumbler is nice and cured and we are outside. The colors that I'm going to be using today for the rind look is this fluorescent green. I'm also going to be using this gloss white. And to achieve that look, we're going to be doing the Dawn Power Wash spray. So I have my Dawn Power Wash here. And I also have a glove for protection, just, you know, so I don't get my hand all gunky with spray paint, you know. So typically I use a hose to wash off my power wash, but today I'm going to use a bucket because I know most of you guys use a bucket. So I have a bucket filled up here to dunk my tumbler down into once we get going here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white. We're going to start with the bottom part first. We're going to shake that up really well. This is very important so that way our spray paint isn't all gunky when we go to spray it. I'm going to prime it a couple times. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my Dawn Power Wash, and this is what's going to give us that look that we would like. And I'm going to do lines up and down my tumbler. You want top to bottom, these lines. And I'm going to leave some gaps in between. And you see my nozzle is pretty close to the tumbler, so that way it doesn't disperse that soap too much. I'm probably about 4 inches away from my tumbler when I'm spraying the soap on. Then we're going to come through and we're going to spray it down really good with our gloss white. I'm just going to do some quick motions here. I didn't want to do it too dark because I still want to be able to see the seeds somewhat underneath. So I'm just going to spray this up really good, making sure that I get that handle a little bit as well. There we go. And after I get this spray painted, all you're going to simply want to do is dunk it down into your bucket to wash off the Dawn Power Wash, because the Dawn Power Wash is like a masking agent. It's going to mask off those areas for us and give us that really neat looking kind of peeled away rind look. So there was a little piece there that I didn't make it all the way to the top, but that's okay. We can fix that once we bring it inside to kind of clean up everything. So you want this fully dried off for the next step. So I'm just going to take a paper towel. I'm going to dab that off, and then we'll move on to the green portion of our rind. So now that my tumbler is nice and dry, we're going to go ahead and take our green fluorescent. You really want to make sure that you shake fluorescents up really well. They do get kind of gunked up at the bottom and they need some extra mixing. So make sure you do it until you hear the little ball, and then go a little bit longer after that. And then give it a couple spritzes just to make sure that color is spritzing out and not the clear that's on the inside. So now we're going to take our Dawn Power Wash and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go right in those pink spots there, filling in all the pink, because we just want the white exposed for the fluorescent to go over top. Now the fluorescent is very transparent, which is why we had to do the white, and it also gave us kind of that two-toned look as well. Now for the green, I am going to load this up really good because, like I said, this is very transparent. And once I have this completely loaded up, we're going to do just like we did with the white. We're going to dunk it down into our bucket, and then we're going to rinse off all our Dawn Power Wash, and then you should have your beautiful rind exposed after that. So after this has dried, I'm going to go ahead and take it off this wand. I'm going to let my wand dry because you don't want to use that with your epoxy. You want to use a nice dry wand for that. I'm going to let this dry up really well, and then we'll start doing up our finishing details. So we're back inside, everything is nice and dry, and we're ready to kind of finish this guy up. I'm gonna go ahead and take my paper towel, and I'm gonna take some rubbing alcohol. The reason why I'm using rubbing alcohol as opposed to acetone is rubbing alcohol is just going to do a little bit of the paint, where acetone will completely wipe away everything, so we don't want that. So I'm just gonna use my rubbing alcohol to clean up those edges, and you wanna be very careful with those little edges. We're just cleaning up overspray out of the middle to make sure that our glitter is nice and sparkly, but if you accidentally rub too much on all those cool little designs we made, it could smudge and wipe those away. So just very lightly come through and make sure you just kind of clean it up. You just want to get the little bit of smudges away and just tidy it up, and then we'll be ready to start epoxying. All right, so I have my tumbler all ready for its epoxy. Before I apply the epoxy, I gave it a good coating of my semi-gloss clear just to make sure that my epoxy wouldn't wick away off all the spray painting that we just did. Now into my epoxy, I'm going to add just a little bit of extra shimmer. I'm going to use some of this green sparkle dust that I sell at my glitter shop. I used quite a bit because I wanted it extra sparkly. So a little bit goes a long way, but I did use a little bit more than usual. I'm going to go ahead and get my epoxy stirred up here. And this was another 20 milliliters. I pretty much used 20 milliliters all throughout this just to make sure we have nice coatings in between everything that we need to do. I'm gonna go ahead and let this coat cure. That is the point where you can add any type of fun decals or any type of personalization. But if you don't want to do any of that, you're going to go ahead and apply another coat of epoxy over top of this, because I like to do 2 finishing coats of epoxy just to make sure my tumbler is fully coated and will last a very long time when I start to use it. And of course, after I apply the last final coat, I'll make sure that I let that cure the proper amount of time, and she is good to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.